Did judges please introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Mackey. I'm in the history department at the University of Louisville and at the law school here at the University of Louisville.
Good morning. I'm Rita McCannon. I'm a lawyer from Huntsville, Alabama.
Good morning. I'm Jay Barth. I'm Chief Education Officer for the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and a retired professor of American politics at Hendrix College. And we're glad to see you this morning.
Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Gwyneth Hiller. I'm a senior at Easthampton High School, and I actually have grandparents who live in Little Rock, Arkansas, specifically. That's where all of my family is located.
Awesome. Cool.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Winberg. Sorry, my computer just froze and I don't know what just happened. So I'm Elizabeth Winberg. I'm a senior at Easthampton High School.
Hi, I'm Zach Clapp. I'm a senior at Easthampton High School, and if I turn my camera off, it's because my computer is doing that too. And this is our lovely teacher, Kelly Brown.
In case the other guys will probably tell you the same thing, but this is a challenge for all of us, and please do not be nervous. We'll fix it. It won't cost you. We'll keep going, okay? Okay, good.
All right, good deal. Well, this is Unit 3, and today's question is question number 2. Let me read the question, then get you started. The question reads, there is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leaders and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government? You may begin.
The Federalists and the Democratic Republicans were born out of both issue and personalities. The issues that divided the political elites included economic policy, foreign policy, and the consolidation of power in the national government. While members of both parties rejected the Confederation under the Articles, the Democratic or Jeffersonian Republicans believed that Washington and Hamilton went too far in consolidating national power under the first administration and that they betrayed the principles of the Revolution in refusing to back the French.
Hamilton's Federalist Party stood behind his strong economic program that assumed state debts, imposed excise taxes and tariffs, and created a national bank. Hamilton believed that the national bank was both constitutional and necessary for carrying out Congress's taxation, borrowing, and spending powers in Article 1, Section 8. Jefferson rejected this implied power and the bank, as he believed it ran contrary to his ideas of an agrarian society.
During the Napoleonic Wars, Jefferson wanted to honor the Treaty of Paris by supporting the French, while Hamilton wanted to support Britain because of their trade and cultural connections. Washington proclaimed neutrality in 1793 and received intense pushback from the Jeffersonian camp for assuming Congress's war power and betraying the Revolution. Jefferson actually resigned in protest. Finally, they disagreed on the Alien and Sedition Acts, signed into law by Federalist President Adams, which they argued were being used to target Democratic Republicans.
In response, the Virginia Resolutions, authored by Madison, stated that Congress was exercising a power not delegated by the Constitution, but on the contrary, expressly and positively forbidden by one of the amendments. The Kentucky Resolutions, authored by Jefferson, went even further and asserted that states had the power to nullify unconstitutional federal laws. The Republicans touted themselves as strict constitutionalists and used this argument to attack the Federalists during the first two administrations.
230 years later, it's hard to argue that the same issues persist in today's political parties without distilling to the bare issues that would impact any political divisions. To that extent, economic and foreign policy and issues of federalism continue to influence divisions between and within political parties. Some political parallels might include that personalities heavily influence the parties and that constitutional constructionism can be shifted based on the issue at debate.
The framers intended to create a deliberative system, which would be obliged to control itself as referenced in Federalist 51, through checks and balances, one of which being divided government. Unlike in a parliamentary system, divided government would include the minority voice in a more substantive way. The intended benefits of divided government include less and more thoughtful legislation, protection against populist whims, and economic stability and predictability. The drawbacks of divided government appear when we shift from theoretical to actual practice. They include gridlock, misdirected accountability, and at times failure to even maintain the basic programs of government, as seen with recent government shutdowns and failure to adapt policy to constant changes like immigration or social security.
Unified government is most often associated with parliamentary systems and allow for rapid change with clear accountability tied to one political party or coalition. The first 100 days of President Roosevelt's first term demonstrated this, with swift and drastic changes to the economic and political structure of the government. Because of the filibuster rule in the Senate, creating a true unified government today is rare, which leads to workaround procedures like reconciliation in the current unified government.
We believe the bigger issues with our government do not lie within whether or not it is divided or with our presidential system, but rather in our nation's two-party system. Two polarized parties results in the lack of a middleman or other ideas, and by promoting third parties through systems such as ranked choice voting or proportional elections, we can ensure that when our government is divided, it's productive, not halted. Thank you. We're ready for your questions.
Cool. Well done and under the time. Nicely done there, folks. This is one of those evergreen questions in American history and the American polity of how do you go about organizing political motivation, political ambition in a constitutional structure that doesn't mention anything about political parties. And that at first in the 18th century, where political parties were seen as an illness in the body politic. So that over time, what people have to do is kind of accommodate themselves. And that sometimes in scholarship, you're going to see that political parties are described as the lubricant of the Constitution. How can political parties be seen as a lubricant in the constitutional structure at the state level or the federal level or something along those lines? Help me out a little bit.
Well, if I were to interpret as the lubricant, I would imagine it be loosening the structure of the US Constitution, which I fully agree with. I think that it causes parts to shift, in my personal interpretation, when they should not be shifting. I don't think it actually makes our system run better like lubricant might naturally would. I think it actually grinds it into a point where pieces shift and unnaturally consolidate and make it more difficult for our government to function. You see it with the consolidation of the executive and Supreme Court justices like Amy Coney Barrett, who have made the Supreme Court incredibly partisan. You see it with the issues of gridlock at our Congress over issues such as like HR 1, the Green New Deal, some of the Biden administration's new proposed legislation, the John Lewis Advancement Act, in which they're clearly divided by a partisan line. I think more often than not, those who argue that political parties are a lubricant or a beneficial thing to our federal government are really kind of glorifying what political parties are today. I think they could be if we had more, but with a two-party system, they most definitely are not.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really difficult because Washington even warned in his farewell address about political parties, and they didn't really intend for them to have political parties. Even when they were writing the Constitution, they didn't want to have political parties. So I think that based on the way we follow the Constitution today, it wasn't based to have political parties. So it's really difficult to fit those two together.
Well, given that you know that people in government are going to all have different ideas, what would be, are political parties not inevitable in a democratic system? What other kind of decision-making groups would we have? And I apologize, this is a multi-part question, but I'll try to make it easier to answer. One of you, I think Gwyneth said a few minutes ago, it would be better if we had more parties, multiple parties. Explain that a little bit.
I think when you look at our current political system, there's a law, Diverger's law, in which when you have single member districts as signed into law by the Apportionment Act of 1822, you result in, it's eventually going to go to the collapse into two parties. It is natural that it would end up that way because we have a first past the post system, a system that promotes a two-party system. I think political bias is unavoidable. And personally, I think people who glorify the Supreme Court as an independent body are fooling themselves with what actually is going to happen. In that sense, I think that we should shift to mixed member districts in a more proportional system, because I think that is the best protection against political bias. Having one side or the other further polarizes people. I think the most recent example I can think of is the ACLU disagreed with a lot of the parts of the HR 1 bill, but because they needed those voting rights extended, they agreed to it anyway, despite thinking that there were certain aspects of it that were human rights violations, like the listing of all the donors to political campaigns, etc. So personally, I think that would be the best course of action from here.
I agree. I think that while people like falling into and making political parties is kind of a natural thing, because it simplifies it, it makes it easier, and people like having groups and like coming together, and it helps with getting people elected, certainly. But I think that everybody does have very different ideas, and everybody is their own unique person. And I feel like people should be able to make decisions based on more what they want to happen, what their opinion on the decision is, not with what some general like party decides or what party they should go with. So I think having multiple parties is kind of the closest we could get to not having parties, in allowing people to, kind of freely make these decisions and have lots of different ideas and points of view being represented. Because we have a lot of people in our country and they all are supposed to be getting representation.
So Rita kind of stole part of my question, but as you think about your own kind of future as social change and political change agents, where does it make most sense to invest your time and energy, in political parties or in interest groups, as Zach was just talking about a bit?
I think personally, I would invest my time and energy into political parties, because I think the expansion of political parties will be able to better appropriately represent multiple interest groups. I think
But don't you Ms. Hiller, don't you end up with, when you have multiple parties, really what you don't have parties, you just have multiple interest groups. And
yes,
there's no opportunity then for real dialogue or exchange, or that friction of parties where everybody has to compromise in order to get public policy to come forward. You just end up with further splintering. So I'm a little fuzzy here. I think my colleagues' questions of Alan one, parties or interest groups, help me understand this a little bit better.
okay, well, I would disagree in stating that by having multiple parties, it results in a splintering and a more relation towards interest groups in that sense. If you look at Germany's system, the proportional system, I'm personally am a huge fan of. You'll notice that they often have coalitions or more dialogue of working together and cooperation between the groups or political parties, that we do not have that dialogue here. If you look at the DC statehood law that just passed the House recently, it was completely divided partisanly, with Democrats supporting it and Republicans not. Similarly to the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump, it was split right down the middle with a partisan divide. And I think what's interesting to note about that is recently we met with Mike Martin, the chief deputy of staff for Representative Ronnie Jackson of Texas, and he stated that that polarization we see in the media is hyped up for political funding as well. Our system benefits from us being against each other and not working together because of case law like Citizens United v. FEC and the decision that corporations deserve to be treated like humans and have human rights. So I would just disagree with the idea of the question in of itself. And I think we need more cooperation. So we need more people reflected proportionally within our government.
Go
ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't want to dominate. I keep doing that a little bit. Where I wanted to go real quick here within the last minute is, are we talking about parties or are we talking about factions? And there's that old discussion going back. Well, there it goes. But that's one of those polls we continue to talk about through time and space as well. Look, this is one of those, like I said, sort of evergreen questions in American history and American legal and constitutional history. And These are issues that people have struggled with for 200 plus years. So of course we ask high school kids to fix it for us. That there is no right answer, but rather how does this dialogue continue? And I thought you did a good job of taking a position and defending it, explaining your positions, arguing from the evidence up to your decision. So I thought it was really interesting and a nice group here to get us started on an early Sunday morning like this. So nicely done, folks.
I thought y'all did a great job. I thought I thought y'all were just quite inspiring, actually, in terms of your ability to think about these kind of big, very theoretical and historical issues and then bring them to current times. I thought your examples were very strong. I thought you connected the dots across time really well. I thought you did a lot with a short amount of time, and you thought very well on your feet in terms of the question and answer. I thought that showed real strength. You don't just know this from the ability to spout out some initial answers, but you really had the ability to respond pretty quickly to I think what were some pretty challenging questions.
I would agree with Jay, and I would say quickly, I sure hope you guys are prepared to fix this. It is distressing to me that nobody wants to work across the aisle with anyone. I would want you to think further about multiple political parties and what that would actually mean. How would it mean driven by more money, or would it mean less money? And would we elect somebody who nobody's ever heard of before? He just happened to get one or two more votes than the person behind him. That's fascinating to me. And I hope you guys, as you become the adults of the future, will work toward that, because the things that you all represented to us this morning sound to me like a potential solution. And you've got these experts here telling you how much they love it. Go for it. Go for it. I was real impressed too. And Zach, you held up really well again with two women telling you, working with you and all that kind of stuff. So I thought y'all did a great job, and I'm just really proud that you that put in all the effort that you did to get here today.
Thank you so much.
So Gwyneth, who are your grandparents?
I don't know if you'll know them, but Linda Geddes and Jerry Geddes.
I recognize the names. It's a small town, so you know that. So good to see. Yeah, great job.
Thank you. It might be strange if they randomly get a message from you, but they're very nice people. I'm sure they won't mind at all.
Great.
Thank you all so much for being here, for supporting the
Bye-bye.
program.
Happy to help.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Breathe.
job,
It's
you guys.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Later.